All right, if you are where you need to be, your paper should look something like this. You've got a finished heading, you've got a title, and you've got a paper that is at least 3 paragraphs long. One introduction paragraph, at least one body paragraph. You can see this paper has 2 body paragraphs, and a conclusion paragraph. Don't be fooled, however. This is a research paper, so there is one final step that needs to be completed, and that is a works cited or bibliography page where you list all of your sources. This is really important because this is how we meet that standard of avoiding plagiarism. A lot of times students have trouble with the works cited page, but it really is quite simple. And if you follow these steps, you too will have a perfect works cited page. The first thing to know about a works cited page or a bibliography page is that it is its own page. And so you should have a title to this page that starts at the top of a brand new page at the end of your paper. I'll show you what I mean. So you can see my paper ends not quite halfway through the second page. So to start a works cited page, I need to get my cursor, the little blinking line that shows where I'm going to type, at the top of a brand new page. Really simple to do. You do it by simply pressing the Enter key. Now notice I hit Enter the first time and that cursor automatically indents. I don't want to mess up my margin, so I'm going to backspace. Now my cursor moved over here. I'll do that again just so you can see it. Enter and backspace so the cursor moves. And now I'm going to hit Enter multiple times until that cursor is at the top of its own brand new page. And there we are. So I'm ready to start typing because I have established a brand new page at the end of my paper for a list of my sources. So now that I have my own page established for my sources, it's time to go ahead and include a title. You can either title it Works Cited or Bibliography, whichever you prefer. They're both accepted terms for this special page. And then it needs to be centered. I'll show you how to do that. So back on my sample research paper, you can see I've got my cursor at the top of that third page. I'm going to simply type the title Works Cited. Notice that it is capitalized. Again, you could also use the title Bibliography. That's also accepted, but I'm going to use Works Cited. Once you have that typed, then just go ahead and center it using your alignment tools up here on the toolbar. And there you go. It doesn't need to be any larger than that, the same font that I typed my paper in. It's important to remember that research papers aren't meant to be flashy. They're just supposed to be clean. And so a large special font isn't required. Just a regular 11-point font that I use in my paper is very appropriate. So that step is done. Our third step is probably the one that is most challenging, but you guys have done a lot of work already to make sure you can do this easily. And that is to go ahead and start listing your information. And you'll do that alphabetically, based on the first piece of information listed in each source. I'll show you what I mean. Because I followed the directions and found my resources at the database presented in class, I have all of my resources saved as Google Docs in my drive. You can see I have this one called A Digital Discourse, a second article titled Video Games, and a third article titled Apple Needs to Stop Kids from Getting Hooked on Phones. One of the nice things about having resources saved in your drive is if you scroll down at the very bottom of each article, you can see there's a thing called the source citation. This is actually the information I need to put on my works cited page. You can see this one starts with an author's last name, Cineroy. My second resource starts with Gale Middle School Online Collection. So that would come before S. And my last resource starts with the title Apple Needs to Stop Kids from Getting Hooked on Phones. That begins with an A. So that actually will be my first resource. So because I need to put this on my works cited page, I'm going to highlight these 4 lines. And then I'm going to right click and copy. And then I'm going to go to my research paper. I want to move to the next line. I do not want it to be centered. I need to move this cursor over to the left. So I'm going to justify with a left alignment so my cursor moves over here. And then I'm going to simply paste that information. And then you can see those 4 lines appeared there. Alphabetically, I want to go to my second source, A. And so I have S and G. G comes before S, so that will be my second source. Going to highlight, copy, and paste. You can see that appears, and then I'll move to a third line and go ahead and pull that third resource by highlighting, copying, and lastly pasting. So now I have all 3 of my sources alphabetically listed: A, Apple; G, Gale; S, Sina Roy. So 3 of my 4 steps are done. My works cited page is its own page. I've got my title centered and my sources are listed alphabetically. Last, I'm going to format this page properly. I need to make sure to fix my indents, and I need to make sure it is double spaced, because that's the proper way to do a works cited page. This can somewhat be confusing for a student because it's a format that's very unusual. But works cited entries are kind of like paragraphs. You have one line that is different from the rest. A paragraph is indented on the first line, as you see up here. Indented on the first line, and every other line of that paragraph is way over to the left. A works cited entry is opposite that. You want to leave the first line all the way to the left, and you want to indent the lines that follow. So it looks kind of like that. See my first source, first line all the way to the left, lines 2, 3, and 4 indented. Here's how you do it. Simply put your cursor in front of the second line of the entry. You need to hit enter first, and then press the tab key. Again, enter and the tab key. Then go ahead and move to the third line and only press the tab key. Enter is not needed. You'll notice that second line got indented, so I'm just going to backspace it so that this is all lined up here, pressing the backspace key. And again, on my third resource, press enter and then tab to indent, and then tab to indent that third line, and then backspace to remove that extra indentation. And now you can kind of see where my first resource begins, my second, and my third. That's how your resources should look at this point. First line all the way to the left, additional lines indented. You see a nice, clean margin. Second thing is it needs to be double spaced. That's really simple. I'm just going to highlight all of my sources. You can see that list there. I'm going to go right up here to the line spacing tool, and I'm going to select double. And now my works cited page is all done. It's got its own title on its own page. They are listed alphabetically, and they are properly formatted. And now my paper is completely done, and because I've listed all the sources I've used, I am preventing myself from plagiarizing. You should do the same. Good luck.